Good evening, I'm Michael and you're watching Kini News, the show that brings you today's biggest stories. Najib Abdul Razak has opened up about his conviction in a video posted on Facebook, and in it he vowed to continue fighting. A week has passed since Najib Abdul Razak was found guilty on all 7 charges in the SRC International trial, and in that time, the former Prime Minister appears to have composed his thoughts on his conviction, which he calls unfair. In a 7-minute video addressing his friends, Umno members and the Malaysian people, Najib vowed to appeal the High Court's verdict.
Saya berikrar akan terus berjuang menentang keputusan yang amat tidak adil ini. Saya akan memanfaatkan sepenuhnya proses perayuan ini dengan penuh keazaman dan saya akan terus melawan dan berjuang demi rakyat. Yang pokoknya, saya tidak pernah minta maupun ditawar 42 juta sebagai rasuah.
Najib claimed that the money was used for Umno welfare programs and corporate social responsibility initiatives for orphans and was never for himself.
Semasa menjatuhkan hukuman, hakim menjelaskan bahawa pihak pendakwa raya juga tidak pernah membuktikan wujudnya niat jenayah untuk menyalahgunakan wang bagi perbelanjaan pribadi apabila hakim menyebut bahawa lebih 99% daripada wang yang dibelanja dari akaun di bawah nama saya adalah untuk perbelanjaan CSR dan kegiatan politik. Bagaimanapun, saya diarahkan untuk membayar denda sebanyak 210 juta ke atas 42 juta yang diterima, di mana 99% dibelanjakan untuk tujuan CSR, iaitu RM5 untuk setiap RM1 yang dibelanja, dan hakikatnya ianya bukan perbelanjaan pribadi. Seperti saya nyatakan tadi, Mahkamah sendiri telah mengesahkan 99% bukan untuk perbelanjaan pribadi.
For example, Najib said a witness testified that 400,000 was donated to Rumah Penyayang Tun Abdul Razak in Pekan for daily expenses and schooling costs for orphans.
Untuk kegunaan harian menjaga anak-anak yatim dan kos persekolahan mereka. Dan sebab sumbangan itu, saya dihukum denda 2 juta kerana sumbangan 400,000 untuk keperluan anak-anak yatim dan kos persekolahan mereka. Saya dihukum kerana membuat kebajikan menjaga anak yatim dan persekolahan mereka.
Najib also expressed disappointment that he was penalised for giving money to Umno. Najib further disputed Judge Muhammad Nazlan Muhammad Ghazali's ruling that there was no evidence that the Saudi king intended to provide him with a donation, pointing to witness testimonies that suggested otherwise. Najib's defence team had repeatedly argued during the trial that the former Prime Minister believed that the 42 million ringgit that flowed into his bank account between December 2014 and February 2015 was a donation from the Saudi royal family. In his submission, the defence lawyer contended that Najib's belief was strengthened by the millions of US dollars of Arab donation that flowed into his accounts in a series of transactions between 2011 and 2014, based on testimony in court. The prosecution had argued that the money originated from government-guaranteed loans from the Retirement Fund Incorporated, KWAP, a statutory body managing pension schemes for public employees. In his verdict, the judge found no evidence that Najib was personally informed of the donation, nor did he attempt to verify the source of the funds when he received them. Nazlan also noted evidence that the money suddenly appeared in Najib's account whenever his account balance was low.
Kita percaya hakim telah melakukan kekhilafan dari segi undang-undang semasa membuat keputusan. Antaranya, hakim memberitahu bahawa tiada keperluan untuk membuktikan niat jahat atau criminal intent, dan juga tiada keperluan untuk menunjukkan bahawa wang dalam akaun saya adalah benar-benar berasal dari kuat.
What is the function of the National Disaster Management Agency, and why hasn't it been more proactive in dealing with floods? According to a minister, being proactive is not in their job scope. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Mohammad Redzuan Yusof, today clarified that the role of the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, is only to manage floods when they occur and not to prevent such disasters.
Tugas yang tuan betul, tugas NADMA cuma menguruskan bencana. Jadi NADMA cuma berfungsi ketika ada bencana. Sekiranya berlaku bencana yang lebih besar, tugas itu diangkat kepada Majlis Keselamatan Negara. Kita tidak terlibat dalam kita boleh memberi orang kata cadangan dan sebagainya sebagai NADMA dasar pengalaman kita menghadapi banjir. Jadi perkara itu memang dibincang. Contoh hari ini kita mempunyai kaedah yang sedang diperhalusi mengangkat kepada Majlis Keselamatan Negara supaya pengurusan banjir itu lebih orang kata mempunyai matlamat untuk tidak ada banjir lagi.
Redzuan's explanation came following criticism by Pokok Sena MP Mahfuz Omar that NADMA should be focusing on managing prevention solutions of disasters such as recurring flooding.
Setelah sekian lama NADMA mengurus bencana bila berlaku, sudah dapat mengenal pasti apa punca-punca. Jadi sebab itu sepatutnya NADMA sudah dapat menyelaras dengan kementerian-kementerian yang lain untuk memastikan pengurusan mengelak daripada berlaku bencana, khususnya bencana banjir. Sebab kita tahu punca banjirnya peparitan, banjir temenung dan sebagainya. Kita tak perlulah lagi nak habiskan duit, nak beli kemah baru, nak sedia itu dan sebagainya. Ini yang sepatutnya dilakukan. Apakah langkah-langkah yang telah pun diambil oleh NADMA sebagai badan pengurusan bencana untuk mengelak daripada berlaku bencana seperti mana banjir khususnya.
Earlier, Redzuan said the government is purchasing 20,000 Sharia-compliant closed tents to be used by flood victims being housed at temporary shelters. He said this when answering past lawmaker Ahmad Fadli Shari on steps NADMA has taken to prepare guidelines on Sharia-compliant management and housing of flood victims. To this, the minister assured all SOP were Sharia-compliant as well as inclusive of all religious considerations. The SOPs also took into account physical distancing measures in light of the current COVID-19 pandemic. The Election Commission has supported calls for its own officers to be given more power so they can play a bigger role in acting against election offenders. Acting Election Commission Chairperson Azmi Sharam has backed calls for the EC to be given more power to act against offenders during an election. And for this to happen, the Election Offences Act needs to be reviewed.
Ya, ini adalah satu isu yang kita mesti menjelaskan bahawa kuasa untuk mengambil tindakan kebanyakannya terdapat di tangan pihak polis dan juga pihak SPRM. Ya, jadi kalau kita lihat SPR kita, pegawai-pegawai SPR sendiri tidak mempunyai banyak kuasa untuk mengambil tindakan. Okey. Jadi ini adalah satu perkara yang memang kita mengambil berat dan justru itu kita mengalu-alukanlah bahawa dalam inisiatif ini mereka memang mengkaji cara-cara untuk memberi lebih kuasa kepada pegawai-pegawai SPR untuk menguasakan akta kesalahan pilihan raya.
Bersih Chairperson Thomas Fund, whose electoral reform group organised the workshop on election offences today, said the government should look into amending the law as it was outdated.
So I would say even that the Election Commission has less power than the traffic police. Traffic police, at least you are speeding, didn't wear seat belt, they give you a compound fine. If you're not happy, you can go to court and appeal. Election Commission don't even have that power right now. So part of this consultation is to review the act, to bring it up to date with today's reality, that includes social media, and also define more clearly, some of the vague terms, but also to give the Election Commission some teeth.
Fund said discussions about reforming the law have been ongoing since February 2019 and hopes the government will improve the act. For the first time in more than a week, we've seen a drop in the number of active cases. Malaysia today recorded a single new COVID-19 infection, and with 16 recoveries, the number of active cases dropped below 200 for the first time in more than a week. The country achieved a low of 36 active cases on July 9th, but a series of home quarantine violations sparked new COVID-19 clusters. Following that, the government reimposed isolation at quarantine stations instead of home quarantine beginning July 24th and made mask wearing in public places compulsory on August 1st. No new imported cases were reported today. Health Ministry Director General Dr. Najib Abdul Razak said the sole new case today involved a Malaysian in Perlis. No new death was reported, maintaining the death toll at 125. At least 7 personnel were involved in a raid at Al Jazeera's office in Kuala Lumpur today. Al Jazeera's Kuala Lumpur Bureau office was raided by Malaysian authorities this morning. The raid was part of an ongoing probe into its 101 East episode that highlighted alleged mistreatment of undocumented migrants in Malaysia, according to sources. Malaysia kini understands that at least 2 uniformed personnel and 5 others in plainclothes had raided the Qatar-based broadcaster's office on level 27G Tower and seized several devices believed to be used in the production of the 25-minute documentary Locked Up in Malaysia's Lockdown. Al Jazeera's management is expected to issue a statement soon. When contacted, lawyer Hisham Teh Pothiak confirmed that his team was present during the raid. A source from the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission said questions on the matter should be directed to the police. At the time of reporting, the Bukit Aman Police Headquarters had been contacted for a response. Coming up next, the war on COVID-19 will be a long process. The WHO says the road to normality will be long, with some countries requiring to reset their strategy on how to contain COVID-19. The World Health Organization warned on Monday that despite strong hopes for a vaccine,
there is no silver bullet at the moment, and there might never be.
The Director General of the WHO said there were concerns that vaccines might not prove effective or they might convey protections for just a few months. He said for now, stopping outbreaks hinge on the difficult task of testing, tracing and social distancing. According to a Reuters tally, more than 18 million people around the world are reported to have been infected with the disease, and 688,000 have died. With cases spiraling globally, the fatality rate appears to hover somewhere below 1%. But Maria Van Kerkhoff, the WHO's lead technical expert on COVID-19, emphasized that the number still reflects a global cause for alarm.
That may not sound like a lot, but it is quite high if you think about a virus that can transmit readily, that can transmit well.
The UN body's Emergencies Program Director said that nations with a particularly high transmission rate, such as Brazil and India, needed to prepare themselves for a grinding fight against the novel coronavirus.
The way out is long, and it requires a sustained commitment to doing many what on the face of it are very simple things, but are difficult to actually implement.
The United States remains the global epicenter of the pandemic, with more than 4.5 million cases and north of 155,000 deaths.
It's not our job to tell the US what it should be doing at subnational level.
The WHO declined to comment on Washington's response to the crisis, but said that while the science was clear, leaders weren't always willing to listen.
The difficulty for us all is sometimes we know the right path. The difficulty is choosing to walk it.
And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching.